In the early 19th century, the bustling city of Edinburgh, Scotland, was rocked by a series of gruesome murders committed by William Burke and William Hare. Known as the Westport murders, their heinous crimes involved killing for profit, selling the bodies of their victims to medical schools for dissection. This narrative explores the events leading up to their criminal enterprise, the horrifying details of their murders, and the lasting impact on medical ethics and legal reforms.
William Burke and William Hare, both Irish immigrants, found themselves in Edinburgh during a time when the city was a leading center for medical education. The demand for cadavers for anatomical study was high, but legal sources of bodies were limited to those of executed criminals, suicides, and the destitute who died in prisons or workhouses. This shortage led to the rise of body snatching, where resurrectionists exhumed bodies from graves to sell to medical schools. Burke and Hare, however, took a more sinister approach. Hare ran a boarding house, and when one of his tenants died owing rent in 1827, he and Burke decided to sell the body to Dr. Robert Knox, a prominent anatomist. Realizing the potential for profit, they embarked on a murderous spree, luring vulnerable individuals to their deaths.
Burke and Hare's method was brutal but effective. They would intoxicate their victims and then suffocate them, a technique that left no marks of violence, making the cause of death difficult to detect. Their victims were often marginalized members of society, such as the homeless, prostitutes, and the elderly, who would not be immediately missed. The bodies were then delivered to Dr. Knox's dissection rooms under the cover of night. Knox, eager to obtain fresh specimens, did not inquire too deeply into the origins of the bodies, allowing Burke and Hare to continue their grim business undetected for almost a year.
Their killing spree lasted from late 1827 to November 1828, during which they murdered at least 16 people. The turning point came with the murder of Mary Docherty, also known as Maggie Docherty. Neighbors grew suspicious of her sudden disappearance and reported their concerns to the police. Upon investigation, Docherty's body was discovered hidden under a bed in Hare's lodging house. Burke and Hare were arrested, and their grisly activities were exposed. In exchange for immunity, Hare turned King's evidence and testified against Burke. The trial of William Burke began on December 24, 1828, and he was found guilty of murder on December 25. Burke was sentenced to death by hanging, while Hare was released and disappeared from public record.
On January 28, 1829, William Burke was hanged in front of a large crowd in Edinburgh. In a fitting twist of fate, his body was dissected publicly, with parts of his skeleton preserved and displayed as a grim reminder of his crimes. The public outcry over the murders and the involvement of the medical community led to significant changes in the law. The Anatomy Act of 1832 was passed to regulate the supply of bodies for medical research. The act allowed licensed anatomists to use unclaimed bodies from workhouses and hospitals, thus reducing the need for body snatching and preventing future crimes like those committed by Burke and Hare. Dr. Robert Knox faced professional disgrace, although he was never prosecuted for his role in the affair. He continued to work in the medical field but never regained his former prestige. The case also spurred discussions about medical ethics and the responsibilities of those in the medical profession to ensure the ethical sourcing of anatomical specimens.
The life and crimes of William Burke and William Hare remain one of the most notorious episodes in criminal and medical history. Their murderous spree highlighted the dark underbelly of medical advancement during the 19th century and underscored the need for legal and ethical reforms. The legacy of their crimes led to significant changes in how bodies were sourced for medical research, ensuring greater protection for the vulnerable and marginalized. As we reflect on this grim chapter, we are reminded of the importance of ethical standards and the continual evolution of medical practices to uphold human dignity.